Hello everyone, and welcome to Suburban Forge, and in this video I will be telling you how I got started forging and show you around my workspace and how everything works. So on this channel I will be showing those of you who are interested in blacksmithing how you can get started and make your own forge and do your own pieces at home. And as you can see, I don't have a bunch of woods or anything where I can just go and make my own area that's permanent for a forge to stay, so I made this forge portable, and it has wheels on the bottom so that I can wheel it in and out of my garage, and that way this area all cleans up and it's accessible for other uses. I eventually want to have an area where it's more permanent, but this is what I am working with right now. So let me go ahead and show you the forge. So I got this design. I was trying to figure out what design I wanted to do for my forge. Something that was inexpensive, didn't take a lot of materials. And I found this. It's just basically a wooden box filled with clay with these legs. And I figured, hey, I have a bunch of scrap wood, so I could try and put this together. That way I didn't have to buy any more materials, and I had this clay in my backyard. So originally, I'll post a link to the original design on YouTube. And so the original design of this is basically just this box. It's just this box and these legs, and the clay forms a pot for the coal, and then there's a drain or like a vent for the air to come up, and the air flows through this blow dryer. That's the source, and up through that tube at the bottom and to the top. And I like this design, and it was mainly for charcoal forge, because it didn't have the elements that a coal forge needed to run. And I was using charcoal originally, and it wasn't very successful for me. It was harder to maintain, it was harder to control the charcoal, it was harder to get it to the temperature I needed to really move the metal, and it was really expensive. Charcoal is not cheap, and so I didn't like it, so I decided to resort to coal, because I knew coal was cheap, and coal was, I mean, it probably won't be in 10 years or so, but it's cheap now. There's a fuel company called Grace Fuel near me, and that's where I get my coal. It's about $10 for 60 pounds, which is a good deal. 60 pounds will last you for probably about 6 to 10 heats, 6 to 10 projects or fires, depending on how long your fire is. But so yeah, this was originally, I just had a grate in the bottom, and I was using charcoal, and I realized that if I wanted to use coal, I would have to make some modifications. And so these modifications were, one, a clinker breaker. And what a clinker breaker does is, I don't know if you can see it in there, but it's two bolts on this rod that kind of shift the clinkers. And what a clinker is this is a clinker. Well, this kind of has some coke in it too, but let's see. I got most of them out. Here's a clinker. And it's called a clinker because it makes a little clinking sound. And those will clog up. Look at that one. Those will clog up your air supply, and that's not good because you need a steady flow of air to keep a hot fire. So that breaks up the clinkers and makes sure your hot fire is running at full capacity. And the other thing I needed to make was and both of these were my original design, like just what I thought would work and trial and failure. But then I needed something to release the clinkers that would fall down, and so I made this little release. That's just a screen door hinge that I attached to. That was actually a like a PVC pipe plug, and I took these bolts, as you can see, these bolts right here, and I bolted the little piece of sheet metal to the plug, and then connected it to this hinge so that it would flip open and closed. And this hinge, it has a point where it kind of clicks and holds itself open, and that works well. I just found these parts laying around the house. And I also wanted to make a little tray at the top to give me a little more area for my coals to sit on the side so I could scoop them onto the fire. And this was actually just one big piece of sheet metal that I cut the corners out so that I could fold the sides together to make the box shape, and then took the spare pieces and bolted the corners together so that it was more secure. And I probably could have just bought a big tray, but it was cheap to just get the sheet metal, so that's what I did. And I also made, I know this looks really bad, like this forge is not pretty. It's not a pretty forge by all means, but that doesn't really matter. I was looking for functionality, and that's all that really matters when it comes to having your fire. So I made these little indentions here because I noticed that when I was trying to, I just bent these down with like some pliers, but when I was trying to heat something, it couldn't get, that was long, it couldn't get very close to the coals because it sat on top of this. So I just bent down on both sides so that I could lay long pieces across and heat specific spots. And this pot was originally a lot deeper, but I shallowed out. It's not very deep now. And you don't need a really deep pot because you make a pile of coals on top of it. But it could be a little bit deeper. It's a little bit shallow, but it works.